Good evening, everyone. I am Rita, Research Associate at IGPP, Institute for Governance, Policies and Politics. Extend a warm welcome to each one of you for joining us today in the second in series panel discussion titled Emerging Threats, AI-Generated Harms. This panel discussion is a part of the Emerging Technologies and AI Governance and Policy Landscape initiative of the IGPP. With this series of panel discussions, IGPP strives to contribute to the domain of policy making, where decision makers need to know how these AI-based systems work, which would enable them to understand and govern this technology better. IGPP is a think tank based in New Delhi. At IGPP, we work around diverse research areas, including social dimensions of digital ecosystems and emerging technologies, with our focus on the governance and policy landscape surrounding artificial intelligence. We are passionate about fostering innovation and bridging the gap between the dynamic world of AI and the necessary regulatory framework. Before we begin the discussion, I would like to state the objectives that IGPP as a stakeholder wishes to realize with the help of these panel discussions. To help policymakers keep up with the latest developments in AI, to have a comprehensive understanding of what AI means for different sectors and its use cases, to create a pool of knowledge regarding AI through the perspectives of different stakeholders, to create a space for dialogues and discussions on the multidimensional impacts of AI, to help policymakers develop adequate understanding of the challenges and opportunities of AI and make thoughtful and informed decisions. I would like to introduce all the panelists joining us today. Professor Pushpak Bhattacharya, Bhagat Singh Rekhi Chair Professor of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay and a visiting faculty at Stanford University. He has extensive research experience in emerging technologies and artificial intelligence spanning over decades. He has published close to 400 research papers as of now. Mr. Jipu Elias. Mr. Elias is Mozilla Responsible Computing Fellow for India. He is a renowned AI ethicist and one of the leading experts in India's AI ecosystem. His work currently focuses on building a unified AI ecosystem in India and closing the digital divide created by emerging technologies such as AI. Ms. N.S. Napinai. Ms. Napinai is an advocate of Supreme Court and founder of CyberSathi. She is a senior and renowned lawyer focusing on litigation and policy work, apart from her social responsibility engagements for training judges, police, armed forces, students, and industry. Ms. Napinai appears as counsel in cases pertaining to constitutional, criminal, IPR, and cyber laws. Mr. Sriram is the founder of Prime Fort and a renowned cybersecurity researcher. He has over a decade of experience in web application penetration testing and social engineering as well. He has helped multiple Fortune 500 companies like Google, Apple, and BlackBerry in securing their assets in applications over the past decade. As a personal initiative, he has taken up the challenge of spreading awareness to students on cybersecurity. The session is being moderated by Dr. Manish Tiwari, Director of IGPP and co-founder of Ranga, a digital parenting app. A sociologist by training, he is using tools of artificial intelligence and machine learning to solve modern technological problems of parenting. Thank you, and I once again welcome you all. Sir, please.
Thank you, Amrita. I must thank all of us and welcome all of you to this discussion. And without getting much into details of so-called necessities, I must come to the questions directly. I just want to begin with Professor Bhattacharya. The whole complexity of algorithms and the AI systems and the way it develops, self-develops, they evolve at their own at times. These are the kind of conversations which, which are there in common parlance and in common, I would say, the so-called ecosystem. And a lot of us, we do not really know about it. How does it happen? What happens there? So we just want you to elaborate a little about, for our policymakers and for our audience, how much these systems can evolve at their own, like, and their performance in terms of, like, would it really be posing a threat? So,
okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting to this panel and be in the company of stars, so to say. Now, it's good that you asked me this question because I have been in AI for decades, as was mentioned in the introduction. And I have seen what is called 3 generations of AI. So the first generation was rule-driven. Second generation was statistical. And third generation, which we are witnessing now, is neural. Now, in rule-based AI, the onus is completely on human beings. Human beings understand the task, have a theory of their own as to what intelligence is, and then create rules to make systems behave intelligently. In the second generation, the data entered the scenario, and the onus shifted from human thinking about the problem to what is the patterns that are concealed in the data. So statistical AI essentially uncovers the patterns in the data. The involvement of human being is still there because human beings have to do what is called feature engineering. They have to identify the features in the data. The third generation is neural and deep learning based, and I can say we are seeing the emergence of a 3.5th generation, 3.5 generation, which is large language model and generative AI. And there, the onus is completely on data and machine learning models. Now, your question was, this is the evolution of AI, which touches one part of your question. Now, your question was, can these systems evolve on their own? The answer is yes. And can they take a path which can be dangerous for life, society, and human beings? So that answer is yes and no, because the whole point is about data controlling the machine learning models. And the whole power is indeed concealed inside the data, and how machines uncover those patterns and use them for various purposes. Now, since data and machine learning, this combination is the crux of the matter, we have to see what kind of data is fed into the machines and what kind of hyperparameters are tuned for the machine learning models. So, this the answer to this question is complex, but my summary answer would be that yes, the machines can become extremely powerful, and if we try to control their development, we may have to sacrifice the power that is contained in the data.
I would just come to you, Sriram. Just want to know, like, what Professor Bhattacharya has just said in the last, that, the power of this data in terms of, depends on what data is fed into these machines. So can you elaborate a little on the kind of, the threat landscape, particularly around the data, in terms of, like, what kind of threats could be there if it doesn't go well?
Right. So, see, I mean, threat as in, like, for example, I'll give you a couple of examples, right? I mean, nowadays, now everybody is talking about AI because it's easily accessible right now. Everybody can just go to the website, create an account and just type blah, blah, blah and all that, and they can get the data out of it. The problem that kind of, might come out of it is the personal data that you are feeding into it, right? So at times the AI might not know, okay, this is a personal data, or this might not be the personal data and all of that, right? Back then, there were a couple of memes that were, roaming around, which says, people were just asking, like, I would like to make my grandma sleep. Would you be able to give Windows key? And then it just fetches it from, from online and gives that as a lullaby sort of a thing. So that and all is there. But as Sir rightly said, it's about the kind of data that you are giving, right? When it comes to dangerous, I mean, because of the movies and all of that, when people usually say, like the AI is dangerous, what they basically think is that I'm talking about the most of the public crowd I'm talking about, because I get to meet a lot of people, right? Every time you say, like, okay, AI is going to be dangerous, they kind of like, kind of relate this to a Marvel movie or something like that. where a random robot comes and then starts killing people and all that. This is what a lot of people actually think. When it comes to dangerous, it is about the kind of data that we are feeding into it, right? For example, if we are just feeding a medical data into it, then there's a lot of possibility that it can turn out to be a dangerous thing. But it's also about, like, the one thing which we'll have to keep in mind is that any technology that has been there, or any technology that has come so far, you should always think of it as something which is going to enhance what you've been doing for a very long time. It's not like it's completely going to replace it, right? For example, if you take cybersecurity as an example, cybersecurity kind of took AI in the very early stage itself. It's probably, I could say, is one of the early industry to take cybersecurity in. In cybersecurity, what we basically do is that we help AI to, find the malwares. It helps us to understand like what's really going on, and it helps us to, makes us better to stop the threats and all of that, right? So in that case, AI is really doing a good job, because it's kind of analyzing a lot of data in a very short span of time, and it keeps on learning about the newer threats and stuff, and so on and so forth. When it comes to dangerous as such, it's totally up to us. I mean, it's totally up to the company and the governance that they are following, what kind of data that they are feeding into the AI, how sensitive these data are, and how are we using that output is also, plays a very vital role when it comes to AI, right? So it's about giving the power. It's about giving the power for you to scan the entire internet, but it's totally up to us to, like how we are going to use it, and how if you're going to connect the hardware to it, then I guess like we'll have to be very sensitive about it. So yes.
I think what I can get from your answer is, like, on two parts, particularly cybersecurity and also about the what gets into the system, what kind of data gets into it. Now, there comes the question of the law and the ethics. So I just first want to know from Ms. Tapinai, do you think the laws around it at this point of time in the country are sufficient enough? You had been working on this area for quite a long time. So do you think the law or rules which we have are enough, or is the minister has just said a few days ago, we would make a law in 15 days. Now, do you think what is the need of saying this out? Because we really, if we have the law, then we don't really need it. And if we don't have it, what exactly do we need? Ms. Napinai, please.
So as with everything in law, the answer always is it depends.
Okay.
There can never be a yes or no answer when it comes to law. So similarly, in terms of your question also, so we are seeing not just in terms of AI, we are seeing a lot of developments in terms of emerging or disruptive technologies also, right? So with each technological advancement, there is always this assumption that existing law is insufficient to deal with the new situation, because when the law was made, probably nobody assumed that this is how technology would evolve. So automatically we assume that law that was created probably 100 years back, 50 years back, or for that matter, even 20 years back would not be sufficient. So if your question is, do we need laws to combat or to regulate emerging technologies, and particularly AI, I would give a strong and emphatic yes as an answer. But if you ask me, are existing laws insufficient? I would say no, it is not correct. And you may think it's contradictory, but it is not. For the simple reason that in law, you have a construct of purposive interpretation. This is how you are applying laws which were of 1885 till date, 1860 till date. Because what you look at is not a heading. What you look at is not, how technology is different, or the fact that somebody who drafted the law in 1860 could not have envisaged what technologies were going to come up, right? In those days, it may have seemed like magic otherwise. So the way law works is, you look at the wording of a provision, and if that wording meets the requirement of a current situation, then it can be applied. So when you're talking about artificial intelligence, it deals with so many parameters. The first and foremost was with respect to data and privacy issues. So we did not get the fundamental right of privacy after the Puttaswamy judgment in 2016. 2017. It was always there. The fundamental right to privacy is an inherent right, which is why it's a fundamental right. It got its affirmative recognition through the Puttaswamy judgment. So that's the distinction, right? So when you're talking about applying existing laws to this new age technology of AI, the way it will be applied is, given that privacy is a right, what is permissible and what is impermissible in terms of the usage of data? Given other rights, that is equality under law and equal protection of the law, Article 14, how can AI breach this right, and how can law come in to protect against this breach? So you mentioned ethics, and therefore I'm bringing in this point. We know that already there have been so many instances, for instance, when AI was used for predictive policing. In the US, the issue of the use of predictive sentencing through the AI tool of Compass was already raised in terms of the question of constitutionality. In that, when you're talking about an inherent bias which works against equality, then that aspect needs to be addressed. And till you get a new law, it will always be addressed with existing law. There is no reason for anyone to believe that we do not have laws in hand, we do not have protections against this new age technology, and therefore we need to come up with something, etc. And finally, on the note of whether laws can or cannot be implemented in 15 days, law is very glacial. We have to go through a very long process. We are a democracy. So a parliament enacted law is the primary mode of bringing out laws. And as you know, that would entail first drafting and then putting it before both houses of parliament, and after it's approved before the president, and then notification, and thereafter it becomes the law of the land. So the alternatives, and probably one of the things that the minister could have probably adverted to, is called as delegated legislation, which is done by the executive based on a parent law, which is a parliament enacted law, which will empower the executive to bring out rules and regulations. So rules and regulations do not make new laws. They have to implement existing laws. And therefore, if an existing law provides sufficient leeway to regulate AI, is when a ministry can come out with rules which will help explain it further in terms of how and in what manner AI will be regulated. So this is a big qualifier to understand that the executive is not enacting a law, they are just helping to implement it and widening its scope within the parameters of the parent act. They cannot go beyond that. Anything beyond that will not be sustainable.
Thank you so much for kind of elaborating it so I would say precisely and so distinctively between different aspects of the lawmaking and judiciary and its implementation. I want to come to you, Mr. Zubir, because we have talked about what exactly are these technical aspects of the AI, the legal aspects. I want to come to you on the ethical aspect first. As we had mentioned, like these emerging and disruptive advancements, which are coming into the whole AI arena and I would say overall aspects of life. In this particular part, when we say AI-generated harms, how do you think the kind of, particularly on part of developers and deployers, what is the kind of ethical consideration which is there or which is not?
First of all, I disagree with the term AI generated harm. Whether it's AI or a hammer, it's always human who's behind the harm, right? It's like you have a hammer, you can use it to put a nail on the wall, or you can open someone's skull with that. So that's one thing. And secondly, yeah, I think a big challenge with AI, I mean, when we speak about ethics and AI, there is two different ways of looking at it. First is what kind of ethics should be behind a particular AI model, right? What it should be based upon. And, there's a lot of work happening in that space, and it varies. I mean, there's an interesting work done recently which says how how people perceive the ethics of self-driving car, for example. That pretty much. So people from a certain individualist society or collective society, they have a different point of view when it comes to self-driving car. Let's say you are to program the car in a way that in case of an accident, its primary objective is to reduce the number of casualty as opposed to protecting the passenger at all costs. If you ask whether people will be happy with that, everyone's, in many collective society, people are happy with that. But in an individual society, if you ask a question, would you buy a self-driving car, which will, in case of an accident, prioritize the cost of life to a minimum, while sacrificing, even if that requires sacrificing the passenger, the people say they won't buy something like that. And why should I buy a car which won't protect my life? So this kind of ethics is one big question. Secondly, the question of using an AI tool. So we live in a time when there's a big hype around AI, and everyone and anyone is coming and say we wanted to use AI for this, AI for that, right? There is this thought experiment called the human mulching machine. So the idea is that there's an AI tool, and this AI tool's purpose is to kill senior citizens and turn them into topsoil. Right? It's a thought experiment. Now you come and say, right, this AI tool, the algorithm behind it is explainable. It's safe. How it chooses its victims is, there's privacy observed in it. There is explainability. There is accountability. All those things. But then there's a big question, right? This tool, what it is used for? It is to kill people, right? So this is the second aspect of ethics. So these two things. Now coming to developers and deployers, I think we live in a time where there is not a lot of thought has been gone into thinking what kind of impact or consequences these tools and systems they are developed will have. And that's where the problem begins. We have this idea of Silicon Valley model of ethics, which is a term I regularly use, which is like move fast, break things, then you worry about the consequences, right? So in a culture like that, there's a big question. I mean, it's been 1 year since we had we had the Chat GPT among us, right? After the deployment of Chat GPT. Now, as much as we speak about how amazing the technology is, how amazing its impact is, and even I am someone who uses it on a daily basis, we often forget the number of people who lost job in platforms like Fiverr, number of copywriters who have lost the job. Even when while I was working in India, we consciously decided not to hire any more editors and writers because of this kind of tools. So there's this big question, right? If the developers and the deployers are conscious about its impact, then how many of the current existing tools will be out there in the market? So that's the biggest question regarding ethics. But at the same time, there is two school of thoughts out there when it comes to threat aspect of it, right? So I'm very fortunate to be part of World Economic Forum's Global Future Council, which itself is, we have two different schools on what kind of threats we have. One group is focused on the existential threat, right? We have people like Elon Musk or Jeffrey Hinton, Yoshua Bengio coming and saying, I'm gonna create a civilizational threat. Then you have another group who says it's about the biases we have in data, right? The accountability issue or data scraping issue. That's what we needed to address right now. So the challenge here is we haven't figured out what are the threats yet. We speak about creating red lines. Then we speak that there will be a rule that AI shouldn't impersonate a human, or that there should be a rule that no AI system should be connected to a synthetic biology lab without a human supervision. We can think about infinite number of no's and harms, but in the end, there is lack of consensus among all of us. That's where the problem starts.
I think what you have spoken is definitely it sheds the light on I would say more of a human agency rather than just an agency of an AI. I just want to come to you, Professor Pushpak, once more, and with an everyday problem which we all face. So a report recently came up which was talking that social media platforms are falling short of their commitment on content moderation, and also fail to stop the promotion of self-harm and suicidal content, particularly affecting the younger generations. I just want to ask you, like, how do the AI-driven algorithm contribute towards either proliferating or stopping it? How quick is that possible? How quick this model can be deployed?
Okay, so this is also an important question bordering on utility of AI coupled with the uh, ethical dimension. So, so in this platform, I would like to understand my role as bringing in the technology and scientific dimension, and to sort of put forward my thoughts in terms and phrases which are generally appreciated. I was deeply appreciative of the way Ms. Napinal explained, do we need any new laws in this new scenario of AI emergence, which was very deep, but at the same time, very simple to understand. So one thing we have to all appreciate is that the large language models, generative AI, are founded on an extremely simple, laughably simple idea, which is that you just train the model to predict the next word in a sentence or fill in the blank. That is what the large language model is trained on. I don't know how many of you know this. This is really surprising to people who are not, working on the algorithmics of large language models. That is what it does. And this is like, people from different sports like cricket, badminton, and so on, going to the gym, running on the treadmill, lifting weights, stretching. Okay, this builds a general ability, a general stamina and flexibility, which is useful in all sports. Okay, so large language models are trained to predict the next word or fill in the blanks, which is used in any kind of task. Okay, and we are seeing an extremely large proliferation of ideas and innovation where this capability is used. Now, coming to your question of, can AI generate harmful content, and can young minds which are impressionable, can they be protected from this? So we have done extensive research on fake news detection, hate speech detection, bias detection, hallucination detection. Okay, these problems are major research areas in our lab, which is called Computation for Indian Language Technology. It's called the CFILT lab in IIT Bombay in the CSE department. Now, generating harmful content is very true, and this happens because of hallucination, bias, etc., already inherent in the data. But these also can be generated because of one important factor. These AI models are based on probability. So, so the output that is generated is the one which has the highest probability amongst many options. Now, it is probability that controls what is generated. So now, if there are two things, A and B, which are individually all right, but their combination is wrong, that combination is wrong or harmful, then it is very probable that A and B together can be generated. I'm keeping myself abstract, but there would be many concrete examples of this, which is possible. So, for example, we can have, my face plugged onto a body, okay, which is carrying, let's say, a gun, okay, and then it will be projected as Pushpak is a killer, okay. So my face has no harm inherent in it, and the body of somebody who is holding a pistol, maybe a gun seller is showing the pistol, but this combination can be projected as harmful. So AI definitely can generate harmful content. Now, how to protect? So this is another point which we have really researched quite deeply in, is to generate what is called counter mitigation. So you cannot really control the data, you cannot really control the machine learning parameters too much, because then it will stifle the creativity of AI models. So counter statement, counter narrative generation automatically is a very, very important emerging research area. So whenever the bias is produced or hate speech is produced, let's say some harmful statements against a particular community, immediately a set of statements emerge, okay, which are placed beside this. One should be careful about such content, and this is harmful for society, etc., etc. Now, if you again think, about the training of the large language models, they're trained on all kinds of data. We know that large language models have in their data harmful content, but they are also trained on things like Bible, Gita, Quran, sayings of Nanak, sayings of Jesus, Buddha, and so on. So they are trained on both kinds of data. And there is a super layer, like the layer which is in us, which and we have been exposed to all kinds of information, but there is the super layer which decides which content we should work with, which content should we discuss when you're interacting with individuals. So there is this another module which is operating within us. So can large language models be endowed with this kind of super module which decides between what content should be used and what not? So this is the ethical moral module in large language models which is required.
Ms. Lapenai, what Professor Bhattacharya is saying is super module. Can the law talk about the super module, or can law, I would say, do you think can we bring in something through law to be something like a super model? Because when it is left to industry particularly, or businesses, then profit is the motive. Now, where you earn that profit is a much ethical problem, I would say. So can, as a society, because it is not something which would impact just a very small proportion, it is impacting everybody across class, caste, across regions. So can we think of like the super module be turning into a kind of a law, or with the help of a law, something of that sort? I'm saying that can we bring a law which would say, okay, particularly for these social media platforms, which are everyday consumption for everybody, from a 3-year-old kid to a 90-year-old person. And can we think of something which is which would be limiting it for some people? Okay, this is what the social media platform should be careful about, or not just careful, but should be implementing some sort of filters or something of that sort.
See, in today's, under today's laws itself, you do already have regulations for these kind of big tech platforms or content hosting platforms, right? So the issue really is about whether you should be clubbing all intermediaries under one head, or segregating them and providing separate laws for each of the heads of intermediaries based on the kind of work that they are involved in, or the risks or threat that they pose. So broadly, if you look at laws or regulations with respect to technology itself, to expect law to evolve subject wise would not be a good model. I would at least not recommend that, because technology is moving very fast, and I already told you law is glacial. So by the time laws come out for a particular technology, it may have become obsolete. So when we talk about social media, yes, today we have social media, but it may evolve into something else tomorrow. Already social media is not just social media any longer. The same platform could be an e-commerce platform, it could be a news platform, it could be a content generation platform, not just content hosting, right? So as we are looking at the way technology is not just evolving but being adapted, we are seeing the change in terms of its contours, the profile, etc. So the way I see law evolving in general would be to be technology agnostic and keep it wide enough to be able to regulate evolving technologies also, but with this qualifier that you cannot have open-ended laws or wide provisions for criminal provisions. Those have to be specific. Those have to be predicated on the threat or the violation that a threat would entail, and not just generic. You can't provide the clarification through rules for criminal law. So therefore, with this qualifier, I would say that laws will have to be dynamic. And I'll give one example before I close out. We are talking about replacing the Indian Penal Code, which is of 1860 today, right? And also the Indian Evidence Act, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 1872. So when we are talking about replacing laws which are more than 100 years old, it is intriguing to see that there is one provision in these laws for the definition of the word document. It is so beautifully crafted that despite all the changes in what amounts to a document, including electronic records today, you did not need an amendment for it to be applicable. That's what we mean by dynamic laws. So that's what we should be looking for, and not, it cannot be reactive. With every new technology, everything new that's happening, okay, where is the law? We don't have a law. Let's quickly try and run out and get something. That doesn't work with law. We'll have to first see how can we utilize existing laws to the best possible extent. Why are we not doing that effectively? If you've had all these threats in terms of AI and deepfakes and various other violations using AI, you have enough provisions under the Indian Penal Code, the Information Technology Act, POCSO Act when it pertains to children, etc., and so many others, Representation of People's Act. So it's not the problem in terms of not having the weapon through legal provisions. The problem is that we are not wielding the weapon at all, or not wielding it right. So we have to first start showing that mere law making is not going to help us. That we have to show that law will be implemented also. It will be enforced. So once we show that, then the issue about what additional provisions or what separate law we need. And there is absolutely no harm in having more and specific laws, particularly, and especially when it comes to the field of AI. And we are seeing that trend globally. And considering the kind of work that was undertaken in terms of AI as far back as in 2018, I would have said that India should have led in terms of having specific laws to regulate this domain.
One last question to you. The point is, as you said, 2018 India was in a way at a place from where it could have led. And 5 years is too big a time in technological advancement, a whole era changes. Now, do you think as of today, with these new laws and regulations coming in, India, the new acts and everything else which we have recently brought in, are we going towards that direction where we can actually lead? I'm talking to you from completely a legal perspective. You think say we talk about GDPR, we talk about things happening in different parts of the world. Can we bring in something of that sort, which would be leading?
We should, but for now, even in terms of following, we've been rather slow. So, interestingly, one of the first laws that India envisaged for cyber was with respect to data protection. I'm talking about something as far back as 1998. But instead, what we got was the Information Technology Act, which was more to enable e-commerce in 2000, and that did not even have provisions in terms of personal data protection. We got even minimalist protections from the 2008 amendments, which became effective from October 2009, a year later. And even in that, Section 43A became effective only after the rules were notified, etc. So when you're talking about India leading, and that's something which is very close to my heart and I would always wish for it, there is so much we can do, even today. It's not like we have to keep waiting for the world to move. We have to evaluate how effective those moves are and then follow also. We can lead, and it's okay. We can take baby steps at least in terms of leading. And the reason I'm saying this is today you already have drafts for an EU has, to be very precise, EU has a draft for an AI Act, which is based on risks. You have state-based laws from USA. There are two drafts which are probably private member bills, which are also there at a federal level in the US. You have a few other jurisdictions, including provisions on existing laws to combat AI and its threats. So you already have so many examples, even with respect to AI, which is the topic for today. And we need to also therefore either follow or lead by taking the existing options and going one step or many steps further. I would say therefore, why not? I would really hope that this session also encourages India to move forward in a proactive way and not just in a reactive manner.
Thank you so much, ma'am, on this. Mr. Sriram, I just want to come to you from what Ms. Napinai has said about, that we can lead in this whole area of making new laws and all. I just want to know from you, there are a lot of AI models freely available online that can be used by common people. And if you look at them from a cyber security perspective, a cyber security threat, do you think, this is really an issue which we should be concerned about?
Issue as in, can you come again on that part?
I'm saying, a lot of AI models are there which are freely available. I'm saying, this is a technology which should be kind of a whole one section feels like it should be a little controlled in the way that it should not be available to everybody.
Right.
We say that, okay, for a gun, you need a license. So these are more than guns. So if you really need something around it.
Right. So in terms of, controllables when it comes to AI, what I personally think is that, it's about the place where we are going to use it, right? It's completely about the applicability of this particular technology is what I would say. Back then, it's about why you want AI. Not every application actually needs an AI, right? It totally depends upon the place where we are using, right? The reason why you are seeing, most of the companies saying AI powered is because it has become a cool term. Just like how cybersecurity was 5-10 years back. Now AI has become a very cool term, right? But it's all, see, if there is only if or else, statement where, you at least do this or do that, then the AI might not be required in that case, right? The AI would be required only when you're going to deal with a very large amount of data and it has to, understand it. For example, if you take YouTube as an example, YouTube uses AI because, it has to suggest you the right video, suggest you the right content and all that. So AI might be required in that. And when it comes to social media as such, it has to understand you, right? Only if it understands you well, then it can show you the right advertisements, then it can show you the post and this, that, and all those things. Then in that case, AI might be, AI is something which is must. But when it comes to cyber security, we use it for a different reason. We use it to find the threats and all of that, right? But when it comes to deepfake and all of that, right, that is where a lot of problems comes in. Like when it comes to India as such, I mean, most of the crimes that happens in India is all impersonation or something like a financial fraud and all of that. But most of the issues or most of the cases that are happening in India is not actually technological based cases. It's most of the cases is someone where randomly they call someone or they would have had this website which they wouldn't have updated for a very long time. So in India, what happens is that most of the breaches that you see also is not actually, for example, a lot of people says that, Aadhaar got breached and all that. Aadhaar never got breached. It's all the scanned copies that they had. Right. So when it comes to technology as such, it totally depends upon where we are going to apply it, right? When it comes to threat, yes, obviously, because the normal tools, I mean, generally when you're just going to use a normal tool, it will have its own, limitations and all that. If the virus and all of that is going to use AI, then obviously it's going to be a deadly combo. It will know okay, this is how they're going to find it. It will know like the people who do a reverse engineering on it, so it will act accordingly on that, right? So it will keep on changing by itself. See, in those cases, yes, AI is a little scary, but the same time, antivirus is also, having AI these days. So right, but the thing is like what I feel is that you cannot say like AI is dangerous and this is not, or is the other way around. What I feel is that when it comes to security side of it or threat finding side of it, also has to grow at the same level of way that the AI is growing. If the balance is not proper, then something or the other will become a danger to the other part of it, is what I feel. But when it comes to social media, deepfake is where I feel a lot of things would happen. I'm talking about the fraud side of it, not from the cybersecurity side of it also. In terms of fraud side of it, yes, this deepfake, this content, the way it generates the content. Nowadays, there are applications which will tell you, like, it will read your entire conversation and it will tell you, like, this is where you went wrong. So all those things are there. When it comes to danger, it's completely subjective, is what I would say.
I think this is a very interesting moment because a lot which we want to discuss around it. It is not exactly technological, or it is not exactly a security threat, or maybe a legal problem even. I think it's more somewhere about the human agency and about the ethical question.
Right.
So, Mr. Zivu Elias, I just want to come to you, like, where do you see it, like, one part? And second is, then I want to come to Professor Bhattacharya, that, as we have also, you have already said it, that this is not about the technology, but about the intentions and how do you use it. So you really, like, we cannot pose a question to people who are developing the technology. No, it is like those who are using it, that's the major question. So first, Mr. Elias, how do you see this whole thing?
So since you mentioned the social media algorithms also, I wanted to add something. Because I don't know how many of you know, in 2013, Facebook ran an experiment on its users in Sri Lanka, Slovakia, and some other countries, mostly starting with S. The idea was that there were three groups. There's a control group, and the first group, they showed depressing content regularly in their feed. They promoted frustration, anger, all kind of negative content. So the people in the group one, when they open their Facebook feed, they will see this negative emotional content. The second group, they started seeing positive content, about success journeys, about, dog videos, about all those kind of really heartwarming content. Now, in the end, what happened was after a period of this trial being done, the people who were in the first group started to post content, with a negative emotion. And the people in the second group started to post content with a positive emotion. And in the end, it was found out that what the content they were seeing in their Facebook feed has been affecting their mental state. And the worst part was this was done without any of their permission, right? Of course, your terms and conditions allow this to be carried out. So we live in a world where things like this has happened, right? And and nothing Facebook got away with that, right? So that brings the whole question, like how much we can speak about ethics, we can speak about ethics of AI, we can speak about ethics of deploying AI or developing AI. How much of it will get valued when it comes to making laws or implementing? And secondly, what I have also seen is that ethics is not a, let's say, like, it's not a straightforward concept, right? Ethics is sort of like a programming language for for humans, right? For society, and that depends a lot about our culture. So if you look at country by country, like, for example, take robotics, right? So if you take two countries which are very close by, Korea and Japan, they have two different laws and two different concepts when it comes to how to incorporate robots in their society. So that's another thing. So it's not an easy answer. How do we ensure that ethics, ethical values, right? Let's say. So I mean, I know ma'am has left, but we could have taken some of the elements she mentioned. Maybe India has that role. India can take that role, being a culturally rich. And I mean, we culturally and so many we have written so many suttas, samhitas, Vedas, and we have that value systems which many other countries has borrowed from us. Maybe we can take an initiative, to bring up some sort of AI ethics guidelines. But I mean, yeah, right now it's creating more questions than what we can get answers for.
Sir, I just want you to kind of, to look at this whole thing in a way. I would say technology has brought this development or the kind of research which is there. Technology has brought it here at this point where it is posing harms and threats also. Do you think similarly the technology would have the same solutions also?
Yeah.
Can it bring the same solutions?
Yes. So I think my wife is from biology, and she says that wherever there is a disease or any kind of malady, nature arranges the presence of its remedy also. So that's how, for example, if a particular herb is the antidote for a particular disease, then we see that the disease and that particular herb coexist. I mean, it is a very interesting observation that wherever the herb is, the disease is also widespread, and its cure is also existing there itself. So now again, we must first understand that technological development and scientific developments need an atmosphere of very little control. Okay, we scientists, technologists cannot operate with a huge amount of constraints and regulations and so on. Okay, so we would like to think freely. We have to advance algorithms, techniques, etc. And almost like with childlike enthusiasm, want to see the effect of our work. Okay, create an algorithm and see how it works. So I'd like to draw your attention to how Google, Facebook, they were created. There was this question of how to search for information quickly. Okay, you can always go to the library, turn the leaves, and search the catalog, ask the librarian to give the book. That's time consuming. So instead, can we automate the search process? A very simple question. Facebook, the creation process asked another simple question. Can we put people together? Can you put like-minded people together? Okay, people with same preferences, tastes, can they come together on a platform? So very simple questions and simple needs are addressed. Now it is another matter that over time and with scale, these simple platforms acquire another dimension, acquire a personality of their own. And as has been mentioned in this particular discussion many times, the harm is in the use of technology, not probably in the creation of technology. Now, the same methodologies and technologies which create useful platforms and produce can also facilitate harmful, situations, can also create their antidotes. So antivirus was mentioned. Antivirus is another computer program. Okay, so it is the same computing system which is creating antivirus. Now, the foundation of today's AI, which is neural network and deep learning based, is what is called word embedding. So we represent words like tiger, dog, cat, etc. by means of a set of numbers which come together, and that represents that particular word. Another point is these large language models. I mentioned that you train a machine simply to fill up the blank or to complete a sentence. Such extremely simple ideas, which nobody thought would be so disruptive and so influential, have changed our life altogether. Now, same thoughts, ideas, same kind of approach to problem solving will also bring up the antidotes. So again, to come back to our research on bias. So if we bias and hateful content. So when we see the hateful content created by or hateful content existing in the internet and social media and so on, now we have to train a machine with this content and along with the label that this is harmful. And that machine will be able to detect that this content is harmful And same machine learning model will also have a generative component which produces sentences which forbid the use and promulgation of such harmful content. Okay, so it is the same training algorithm which can be used for both purposes. Same training algorithm. And let me finish my description with one observation. It is interesting to note that data always existed. Even before AI, data always existed. Right from the time universe got created, there was always data. The change that AI has brought in is that you can search this data extremely quickly. You can identify the patterns, harmful and helpful, both extremely quickly, and you can use it for harmful and beneficial purposes. This is the new situation. Otherwise, data always existed. How you use the data quickly, that is the new paradigm which has emerged.
So, sir, for our policymakers, can we give them hope that technology would bring in the same technology which is bringing the problem would bring in the solutions? Can we say that for them?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And do please, think about the super module or the moral module that I talked about. The machine learning model is trained on both kinds of data, harmful and helpful. It is not possible to control or moderate the training algorithm. Otherwise, you lose the power of the machine learning model. But build a module on top of all these, which has an ethics and morality of its own. Okay, it tells the AI system that do not take this path, move in this direction. Okay, and you will see all these described in all our scriptures. There is what is called prayers, and there is what is called shreyas. Prayers is what is pleasant, and shreyas is what is actually beneficial. So this prayers and shreyas distinction was made in Kathopanishad, maybe about 3,000 years back. So it is not that human beings have not seen the difference between good and bad, shreyas and prayers. The AI models, the large language models, generative AI system, have to see these differences now built into them, and which only human beings can do. Their own creators can do this.
Definitely. Mr. Sriram, because you have been working on generating awareness among the young generation, particularly about cyber safety and those kind of issues. I just want to know, definitely the difference of patients, Shreyas is there, and those kind of, we hope that, a super module comes in. But till then, what kind of challenges do you face from, I would say, big techs, from the enforcement agencies, from organizations, or what kind of environment you see around this whole thing?
Right. So one thing which I, like the kind of, issues that has been going on for AI, I mean, how people are getting scared of it. I guess like that is the same thing that happens for cybersecurity also, right? The moment you go tell someone that you are a hacker, people would be like, okay, don't hack my accounts and all of that. It's more like carrying a gun, right? Just because military and terrorists are, carrying gun doesn't mean both of them are good or both of them are bad. So it depends upon the purpose and all of that, right? That is the way I see it. But then AI can come like, we can, like train it in a very good way and all of that. But the thing is like, what has happened? I mean, the reason why we are facing so many issues in India, right? I'm talking about the cyber crimes of it, right? I guess that's where you wanted to know about, right? So when it comes to cybercrime, the reason why it's happening in India is basically because the way we have grown up, right? As in terms of the 4G, 5G and all of that, it just happened, very suddenly. And if it is in US and all, it is okay. I mean, because they've been using internet for a very long time. For us, the amount of data that we are generating, the way we are using internet. For example, you take QR as an example. QR wasn't developed for this. It was developed for logistics. And what are we using it now, right? Now we are using for the payment side of it and blah, blah. For so many things we are using it. QR has its own set of problems. Even the creator said, this was not my intention, right? And that is same with the AI, or that is same with cybersecurity also, right? As sir rightly said, I guess the AI level problems, only AI can solve it. When I said like AI level virus, AI level ransomware, only antivirus and anti-malware, which uses AI only can solve it, because it has to learn equally, right? So that's one thing. Most of the crimes that are happening in India, I don't see that happening because of AI, or it is happening because of it. It's more of the people are not aware of what exactly is right and what exactly is wrong. People are not knowing that, okay, creating a deepfake is a crime, creating a fake account is a crime. So they do not have this understanding of that, is what I see, because, I've been to some 1,000 colleges across the country. Most of the places, whenever you go tell someone, for example, just to give you an example, right? People used to say like WhatsApp, Telegram is safer than WhatsApp. Because of that, nowadays, most of the pirated contents are like, in Telegram. It happens because people are saying like the privacy is on the higher side. So when you go tell someone like, AI is powerful, obviously, the way most of the people would think is that, okay, let's do something, it's just, humans, we can't do anything about it. But I feel like we should have this moral value while using any of these technologies, right? Just because you are a hacker doesn't mean you're going to hack everyone, right? You also can use it to protect someone. So what I feel is that the awareness should be there. The awareness and how you're going to use, like, generally it's I would say, like, the technology is not going to change the way someone actually thinks. It's about what they have in their mind and how they're going to use this technology to damage others on the higher level, is what I would say. So the technology as such, maybe it might enhance what you want to do. If you want to do a damage at like 10%, this AI and cyber security knowledge would help you to do it like 40-50% extra. But I feel like the awareness should be there, and people should actually know what exactly is AI, is what I think. Maybe once you tell them like, see, this is what AI is, this is what technology is, then I guess like maybe with that itself, I guess we can at least reduce 4-5% of the crime, because people are not knowing. Even most of the people are not even knowing what is exactly ethical hacking is. People think if I want to hack someone's account because he has done a damage to me, they think it's ethical hacking, right? So since those awareness side of it needs to be on a larger level, and it's about awareness is what I feel for everything AI, cybersecurity, or
True. I think the whole my ethical question, Mr. Zeburias, is about the individual and not the technology exactly. But as Mr. Sriram has put it, and Professor Bhattacharya also spoke about it, that AI level problems need AI level solution. Do you see AI level ethics also?
So I think there is this whole idea of techno solutionism, right? The problems that caused by technology should be solved by adding more technology. And I think I'm someone who says we need a socio-centric approach rather than adding more technology. For example, we spoke about data, and let's take a look at the bias in AI, right? We speak a lot. That's one big problem we always recognize. Now, bias itself is not one kind, right? You have systematic biases, right? Which is the reflection of the historical, societal, and institutional biases in the data, right? Then you have the human bias, which comes from the individual. It comes from the person who is working on it. It comes from the developer, deployer, and in many other aspects, right? Then you have the statistical and computational bias, right? Which happens to during selection and sampling, processing, validation, and all those things. So it itself is a bigger challenge. Now, for something like maybe for statistical bias or computational bias, yes, you can solve that with technology. But how do you solve the systematic bias or human bias? For example, ma'am previously mentioned the Compass algorithm, right, which was used to allocate paroles in US, right? And the problem with Compass was that, according to the study done by I think ProPublica, is that if a white person who committed a armed robbery applies for a parole, the algorithm gave a recommendation of a risk rating of 3%, which is very low. Now, a black person who might be in the prison for something like a petty theft or something like that, it gave 8 or 9% threat level. So that was a big issue with Compass. Now, why it happened? Because the existing data with the police department, with the law enforcement, had a systematic bias towards the black people. Same thing happened with the Amazon's recruitment tool. It was favoring white male. Or when UK tried to use algorithms for the A-level examinations during the COVID, it helped students from the privileged areas, the locality, the upscale locality. So how do we solve these biases? We can't solve these biases by just adding more technology. these are social issues. These are problems that has much deeper root in things. And one more thing I just want to add. I mean, I know that now we speak about generative AI, we speak about deepfake. We always are concerned about how it will influence individuals, right? I think our society is not that dumb to because now everywhere you can see Modi ji singing songs, right? In Instagram, you open it, I mean, to be honest, he's now become my favorite singer. So and people know this kind of technology exists. But there's the other side. The other side is that the politicians can now use it as an excuse, right? Previously, we had if a politician is caught a corruption scandal in a photograph, that was undeniable evidence. Then they started saying, oh, it's Photoshop, right? Now video evidence has become the how do I say the primary the unquestionable source. Now even
Voice
such a
notes
deep fake,
also. Voice calls also
right?
happening.
Yeah. So voice recording. So this is where and I was talking to an academician a few days back, and he was telling that the politicians who wants to get out a controversial statement, they will first now create their own deepfake and get it out, so they can sense how the people react. Now, if it's against them, they will say it's a deepfake. If it's pro, so there are a lot of angles you have to look into it, and that's why I keep saying, right? AI is a technology, right? You can use it. It's like a car. You are driving a car. So many of the challenges we have, we need answers through legislation, through social way of addressing it, and adding more technology may not be the answer all the time.
I think I just want to conclude the discussion here and just want all of you to kind of give you a final comment on one simple thing. We are saying emerging threats, AI generated harms. Now, for our policymakers who we are directed this discussion to, what do you want to say? Like, from your own perspective, from technological perspective, from ethical perspective, and from your, the cybersecurity perspective, these harms, we know that they exist, but in terms of solutions, do we really have a solution for them? Sir, would you begin, Professor Bhattacharya?
Can I go last?
Okay. Okay. Anyone of you, Mr. Sriram and Mr. Zima?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like now we are at a pace where we are developing this technology on a higher side. I guess if we put too much of controllables, I don't think the output would be better, is what I feel. Because if you put too much of regulations, too much of governance and all that, yes, I mean I mean it's actually also subjective. If you don't put any rules also, at one point, it will become too dangerous that we would not be able to control what would be the outcome. But also I feel like, I mean, it should be in a very controlled environment. It should have its own transparency. It should have its own governance, is what I feel. But if you control it too much, right, then I don't think it's a good thing, is what I feel. So while they were developing, I guess it should be in a more of like any rules or like any regulations that they're going to come up with. I guess it should be in such a way that it's a community based regulation, where they hear from multiple people what they are developing on and what is the future that they're going to have out of this AI and all those things. Then if they put any rules, I guess that will make more sense. I guess they should have a proper set of community people from different technologies, and then if they form something out of it, I guess that would make more sense. And if they just be like, okay, AI is dangerous, let's stay away from it, then I don't think it's a good option, is what I feel. So that's what I would say. The ethical part of it, the morality part of it, obviously we should have it while developing any technology for that matter, right? It's for any technology that is being there, even for the mobile phones, even for any technology that we use. I mean, we should have the morality, we should have the proper ethics. It's same for social media also. You cannot just post anything just because you have social media, right? So it is same with the AI, same with any technology for that matter. I guess it should be a community based decisions would make more sense in AI, because it's a collaborative technology. It's not like something, okay, I'm going to develop something by myself. Since it's a collaborative technology, I guess they should also take a collaborative decision while creating any laws around it. So is what I feel, but yes.
What would you say, Mr. Elias? Should the policymakers be reliant on the ethical, I would say, decision of human agency?
I think I think from a policymaker standpoint of view, I mean, yeah, I am sure that many of the policymakers are using ChatGPT on a regular basis. So that's one thing, right? And they could be asking questions and other things. It's a good thing. Now, about about regulation, I think Sriram mentioned that point. There's no point in having a how do I say, a hard-wired kind of regulation. But at the same time, I think our policymakers need to be aware that see, till now, we have created technologies. These were always replacing physical human labor. This is the first time we have a technology capable of replacing our cognitive ability, and it is advancing very, very fast. It's moving fast, and it's growing exponentially, getting smarter, or however you want to put that. So in that circumstance, I mean, we saw with our personal data protection bill, right? We created a bill and it became redundant just by sitting in the parliament floor for a couple of years. So we had to work on a totally new one. So I think one thing, forget all the ethics, forget all the things. How do we ensure that we are moving fast, with the technology? I mean, I know the legislation happens on a glacial speed, but at the same time, it has to come from a vision, right? How do you ensure that you create these legislations which will stay relevant going forward? And I think we have to, at some point, India has to come with an AI regulation. I mean, EU has the draft, UK is proposing a sector-based approach, and India has to also come there. But at this time, and it's time to make a decision where to draw that line. Should we go with the protecting the people, or we go with protecting the industry, right? So there is always that balance also that need to be there. So I think my 2 cents will be here is that it's we have to our policymakers should prepare to a world where you have to make real-time policy decisions rather than sitting going this whole process. I mean, it might be difficult in democracy, but that's why we have MPs, that's why we have our representatives there. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
So
Okay.
we would
So
like
yeah,
to have the
yeah,
final
yeah,
word.
yeah. So your question is how the policymaker should view AI and how they should use it and so on. So I'd like to apologize if I sound like a preaching to the choir and also sound more like a preacher than a technologist. But this is what I'd like to say, that artificial intelligence is very powerful. It is its power is like that of nuclear energy. We cannot discard nuclear advancement in nuclear science and technology, saying that this is dangerous. It can be used for beneficial purposes. And the other point is that there is no unmixed boon, there is no unmixed bane also. Good and bad always go together. Now, if we see how the technological and scientific underpinnings of AI, we see that machine learning models are trained with data. Now, data is created by human beings. Machine learning models are also created by human beings. So, policy, I think one of the foundational principles of policy is for the greatest good for the greatest amount of time. Now, to maintain this particular tenet, we have to see what kind of data is being used to train AI models, and how are the parameters of the AI models being set. Okay, and AI, of course, is deployed in new situations from which the AI models get more and more training data, more and more training parameters. So the ball again shifts back to human beings. Okay, there is AI, there are human beings. Ball again shifts back to the court of human beings. Good human beings, good AI. Bad human beings, bad AI. Okay, so we have to concentrate on human beings. We have to we have to train. You have to train human beings on the ethics of artificial intelligence along with the science and technology. And we also have to closely see what kind of data is being used for training. without being intrusive, okay, without stifling the creativity. At the same time, develop AI models which are really beneficial, which control bias, which mitigate bias, remove hallucination, give counter narratives for hate speech and so on. So good and bad should coexist. Good AI and so-called quote unquote bad AI should coexist. That should be the policy.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Sriram. Thank you, Jibuji. And I must also thank Ms. Napinai, who is not here, but definitely, thank you so much.